welcome to Bonita's Kitchen, and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making for you today is cinnamon raisin bread. And what's so lovely about this bread, we are going to make a play on both recipes. You're going to go visit my white bread recipe, that's at the beginning of Bonita's Kitchen, and we're going to show you turn that recipe into cinnamon raisin bread. So let's get started. So for those of you that haven't watched that video already, I recommend for you to do so in order to you to continue making the cinnamon raisin bread. I'm not going to show you that episode on this portion of making the cinnamon raisin bread today, so I urge you to go to that video and watch it. Quite a nice recipe, and as well you can make half cinnamon raisin bread and then you can do the other portion just white bread. So I have already prepared my dough, which is the white bread recipe, for this recipe today. So let's get started turning it into cinnamon raisin bread. So what I'm going to do first is put my dough to the side, and we're going to mix up our mixture for the cinnamon raisin portion of our bread. So I'm going to start with the cinnamon, our raisins, and our brown sugar. So we're going to be using 1/4 cup of cinnamon. So you can measure it or eyeball it. I'll measure it today, just normally I don't. So 1/4 cup of cinnamon, you just pop it on into the bowl. We're going to be using 1/2 cup of raisins, and I'm going to let you use the raisins of your choice. If it's a little bit more, that's fine, but 1/2 cup is more than enough. And we're going to be using 1 cup of brown sugar. It could be the dark brown sugar or the light brown sugar, it doesn't matter. So pour that on into the bowl. So what we're going to do now is just mix this equally together until all the cinnamon and the brown sugar raisins is equally combined. So do that with a spoon or a spatula, it doesn't matter. So this is pretty much what it's going to look like. You're going to need 1/4 cup of melted butter. So what I'm going to do now is put this to the side, and we'll get back into our white bread. So this comes the fun part, I always say. As much as I love working with dough, this stage that we're in right now with our dough is the last stage. So when you made it, you knead it down, and then it rose up again, and this is the stage when we put it into our pans. So when you follow that on the white bread recipe, you can end it then and come over to this recipe on this video for cinnamon raisin bread. So pretty much you would need, at that stage, you need 3 pans, and bread pans if you can, if you got it at your home. If not, you could use whatever you got on hand. And our butter is already melted. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you the portion you need to cut off. This is enough for 3 loaves of bread, and even some extra if you want to do some toutons. And on that recipe as well, it shows you how to make toutons. Alright, so let's get started on that. So on your cutting board or your countertop, it doesn't make a difference, sprinkle a nice dusting of flour. And this is to help the flour move on your board. Plus, sometimes your bread or your dough is a little sticky. So you're going to be cutting off a nice portion. I'm going to say about this much, because it's for a full loaf. In that video that I got there for the white bread, it shows you how to make 3 buns in a pan. And then what you're going to do is just dust it on each side like this. This dough feels absolutely amazing too for working with. You're going to spread this dough out by using your fingers. You don't need a roller. Just spread it out as far as it can go on your board, flipping it each time with the dusting of flour. And what I like about this, it don't have to be perfect, because for those of you that have made bread before, I don't know if you can ever get a perfect loaf of bread. So now what you're going to do is take equal amounts of the cinnamon and raisin mixture and spread over the flat part of your dough like this. What you're going to do next is take your melted butter and just drizzle it onto that equal portions of your cinnamon, raisin and the brown sugar. Just like that, and it don't have to be any particular amount, just enough to have a little drizzle, that's all. So what we're going to do now is roll this together. So at the end of the longest piece, you would start rolling. So roll and stretch, because you want to put as much in there as possible, but you're dealing with dough, so you're able to stretch it a little bit more. So firming it, rolling it, and then stretching it like this. So keep doing that until you get right to the end piece. So right to the end like this, and then you're just going to pinch this portion in under. You're going to need your bread pan, and the bread pan has got to be greased. These are old pans. This is my husband's mom's pans. We've had them for years. So you just put the bread down into that. It's going to look something like this. I'm going to make one more loaf there to show you what it looks like, and then I'll tell you what you're going to do with this after that. So I'm just going to dust my board again, and then I'm going to take, now you can add as much as you want. You can get a nice big portion. It all depends what size of bread you're going to be making. I just got small pans, and we like a smaller piece of bread when we're having it. But you can, like you said, if you got a big bread pan, you make it as big as you want. So again, cutting off a nice portion. Now today, I'm only going to be making 2 of the cinnamon loaves because I want a white loaf as well. And that's the glory of making it this way. You could have a portion of cinnamon raisin, and then you can have a portion of the white bread. So pretty much what I'm doing here now is just spreading it out again to get it ready for my cinnamon and raisin mixture. I'm going to repeat that order again. So talking a little bit about the white bread recipe, that's one of our first recipes that we put up on Bonita's Kitchen, and I must say it's a delicious recipe. But you'll also notice in there, at one point in that video I said 8 cups and then I said 12 cups. I did make an error message on the recipe portion, but just follow along that recipe using the 8.5 cups and not 12. So now this is equal amount there again onto this, and then a drizzle of our butter. So following the same method again, you're going to go to the longer end of the dough and roll it. And each time you roll it, just pull it along. It doesn't matter if you make holes in it. It doesn't matter if it rips a little bit. Dough is wonderful. It restores itself, because as it starts to rise in the pans, you'll see that whatever character it takes on, I don't know, it always works out. So you go like that, you just tuck it, and then I'm going to take my pan, bring this up, put it into the pan like this, and that's what it's going to look like. Now if you want to, you can continue making cinnamon raisin loaves and make as many as you want out of them. But what I'm going to do now, I want to make one regular loaf of bread, and I always do the 3 round balls. So you just cut a piece off and go like this, and then put this right into the pan and do that 3 times, and that's just a small portion, maybe a cup. That's about all. And if it's sticky, you could put a little bit of butter on your hand, or you can use some flour, and that just will help push it along. You can hear cracking in your bread. If you hear that, that's a really good sign. You know that the yeast made it rise good, and it's going to turn out amazing. So that's all you need to do. So pretty much you're just taking the dough and turning it in under like this, to form a ball and put it in your pan. Now years ago, when they do their bread like this, I'm hearing from our elders saying Father, Son and Holy Ghost. So this is the way Newfoundlanders would make their bread years ago, and I just love making it that way because you get a bun for each one. And I put this dough to the side and we'll talk a little bit about the next step. Years ago, when people made their breads, they had a big family and they make bread every day. Of course, you'll see in the recipe for the white bread recipe, I make it optional if you want to put the sign across on your dough, and that would be an old wise tale that people would, it would help your bread to rise, and that's where this method came in for your bread as well. But getting back to what the stage is for you to do now, you're going to keep this in your pans for about a half an hour to 40 minutes. We're going to cover it with a nice towel and put it in a warm area. If it's on your countertop, by your windowsill, if the sun is shining in, let it rise. Double to what it is, just up to the top of the pan. And then when that's done and we come back, I'll show you what's next. Hi, welcome back to Bonita's kitchen, and our dough is now risen enough to put in the oven. I'm going to take the towel off and put it in a preheated oven of 350 degrees. And this, put your timer on for 30 minutes. It should be done at 30 minutes, but if you need to leave it in a little bit longer, that's fine, following the bread directions that's on the white bread. A nice golden brown, it'll come out, and then when it comes out of the oven, I'm going to cut into it and show you what it looks like. Welcome back to Bonita's kitchen. I'm going to be taking out a bread out of the oven now. It's ready to go. And I'm just going to pull out the rack, and here it is. I'm going to bring it to my counter and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I can't wait to get these out of the pan, and then what I'm going to do is give it a light glazing of butter, and I'll show you what that looks like. Just come on in and have a look. Okay, so I'm going to take them out first. As you can see, look, they're nice, and you got all of that cinnamon and that running still out of the bread. I want to tip it out onto this cooling rack first, so I can just give it a light glazing of butter and cover it for just a couple of moments, and then I'm going to cut into it. Now this was the one that was only white bread, and these two was the cinnamon. They're made different because we made them by rolling the bread and putting it into the pan, and this was made in buns, so they rise different. Equally as delicious. I'm going to show you now what that looks like after we just give a light glazing of butter over the top of each one. Okay, so after you give it that light glaze, you just take a small amount of parchment paper, put over the top, and then take your towel and put it back over. And this is just giving it a chance to rest for a few minutes, and then I'm going to cut into it and show you what it looks like. Normally I would leave this like the towel over it and just go on about my work, but because we want to show you what it looks like after it's cut and all of that, I will do that for you today, and we won't have to wait. So I'm going to move my tray to the side and take off one of the loaves. And just put it to the side. Take off one of the loaves and put it on my cutting tray. And I'm going to cut it and show you what it looks like inside. I want to show you, before I do cut into it, just look at how nice and golden brown it is on either side. And again, like, you don't need to overcook this. I mean, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever your oven, you certainly know your own oven. I'm going to turn it to more towards you. It's so hot, it's still blazing. I'm using a knife that got a little bit of an edge on it so that it'll cut through it. I'm going to cut a nice thick slice. I know if my daughter-in-laws and sons was here now, they'd be like, okay, I want a piece of this right now. Just look at the steam coming out, and how nice it is on the inside. Delicious. So for those of you is now wondering what the white bread is going to look like, I'm going to cut into this one. I know this is not something that I would say do at home, but I'm sorry, everybody likes warm bread, and this is the white one on the inside. Beautiful and nice and soft, and then golden on the top and around the bottom. There it is. This is as good as it gets. Homemade bread and cinnamon raisin bread all in the one batch. And for those of you that is not going to have your bread without having a nice bit of butter over it, while it's hot, it's going to melt all the ways through, and this is delicious. And of course this piece is mine, so I know my husband is eyeing this one on the other side, but I'm going to have this one for myself. I'll just stick this one up to the side for you to see. Leftover dough. Nobody has leftover dough, but I gotta keep some because I have to make toutons, and that's as well on that Bonita's Kitchen white bread. And the leftovers that you add from the cinnamon and raisins, just put it in a plastic bag, reuse it, put it over your cinnamon toast. You can put it back over this if you want just a little bit, but this is all out of that one batch of dough. You will get 3 loaves of bread plus a little bit for your toutons, and all in one batch. So for those of you that have never made homemade bread before, I hope you found this episode of Bonita's Kitchen helpful for you today. And for those of you that have made the bread multiple times, I know you're going to be super excited about turning your white bread dough into cinnamon raisin, plus you still got some left over for toutons. You can find the white bread recipe on my YouTube channel and my website, www.bonitaskitchen.com. I'll also post it on my Facebook, and it's also in my cookbook, and that's www.bonitaskitchen.com/cookbook. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that's a subscribe link at the top right hand corner. Just hit the link, it'll prompt you to what you need to do, and each time we post a new video you will get a notification letting you know. I'm going to make a nice cup of tea now to have with that piece of bread I cut off there. So thank you for joining us once again for Bonita's Kitchen, for cinnamon raisin bread, from my kitchen to yours. You have a wonderful day.